Hello and welcome to Tyson's Sports Corner. I'm your host Tyson Maddox, recording from my car using my phone and headphones. So might sound horrible, but at the same time, I'm just gonna go with it because I have been sort of lacking in my recording, especially as I felt I might have broken my computer recently. No issues though with the computer; it's perfectly fine. But I wanted to get a recording done, just to sort of keep a streak going, keep things going. And today's topic, something a bit controversial in the NBA world, so I thought I'd bring it up, is what has been called the tanking epidemic in the NBA. So of course, Adam Silver has been talking with owners, talking with different teams about how to stop tanking. They have different solutions, whether it's uh, lowering the odds, whether it is expanding the lottery to more teams, and so on and so forth. First and foremost, I think if you're going to have a lottery, you cannot lower the odds. And I think part of why tanking is worse in the NBA is because there is no certainty that tanking will accomplish what you want, right? So due to there always being a lottery. And I'm going to compare this to the NFL. And of course, the NFL has its own issues with tanking and is not perfect, right? You can have teams that tank forever. I mean, look at Cleveland, look at Vegas, look at all these teams that have been bad forever, at least in the 21st century. And, tanking doesn't help them. But what I think having certainty that if you're the worst team, you get the first overall pick, and so on and so forth, assuming no, trading picks away and all that, is the fact that if there's a clear number one, and of course that's the biggest if, right? But if there's a clear number one, let's say it's last year with Cooper Flag, when you have when you know that you're going to get the first overall pick weeks or months in advance, as opposed to when the lottery comes around, you can plan knowing you are gonna get Cooper Flag. You can plan, okay, let's say for your Dallas, right? Because we're talking about last year's draft. So you're Dallas, and you're like, Cooper Flag is the number one prospect. There's no one better. There's no point in even looking at other people unless he gets a severe injury. We're taking Cooper Flag. That means anyone who's a small forward / power forward in your team that's skilled is either going to have to be moved, or they're going to have to understand that they are going to have a lesser role in your team for the foreseeable future, right? You're hoping Flag has a long career on your team, so that's the idea. The problem with the NBA is that you can't make those types of decisions, with as much certainty as soon as you can in the NFL. Whenever I forget who has the first overall pick this year. It's the Raiders, right? So I missed it. So Las Vegas has the first overall pick this year, right? They had the first overall pick. They had the first overall pick since like week 13, week 14 maybe. And so they've been able to say, okay, we're taking Fernando Mendoza. So we're going to need to make plans to either uh, release people, cut people, trade for linemen, which they did with Linderbaum, all these types of things, again, with the idea that we are going to have Cooper Flag. There is no, not Cooper Flag. We're going to have Fernando Mendoza. There's no other option than Fernando Mendoza unless something crazy happens. So we're going to be looking at Fernando. And I think that is one of the big issues the NBA has that they can't do, is that they can't weeks in advance, months in advance, have teams who are losing say, okay, we have this pick, we're going to take this guy, we need to do these things. And to me, it adds luck to a system, which is luck-based, to be fair, but I think it adds even more luck to something whereas in other sports like the NFL, it's easier way to say, oh, we are bad because our GM did these things wrong. The GM made these mistakes knowing that we are going to have this pick with this person, right? Hence why the trade for, just to use one as an example of a trade people really didn't like, when the Falcons traded or signed Kirk Cousins, right? They were like, okay, so they have Kirk Cousins, and they have months now to look at the draft, see what they want, blah, blah, blah. And there were already talks about Kirk moving, so they assumed having at least a quarterback. So then when they drafted Michael Penix, everyone was confused because it's like, wait, you had this plan to take Kirk Cousins for weeks. Why did you draft a quarterback when you already had your quarterback, right? And so that's where the confusion arose there. I think the NFL, because of the lottery, makes it even easier for those kinds of mistakes to happen, and thus makes it harder to evaluate a GM in the same type of way. Whereas everyone knows good GMs in the NFL. Everyone knows who Howie is. Everyone knows, GMs for the Chiefs, for the Rams, those guys who do well every single year in the off season and make what seems to be right move after right move. And I think the other part is, and the long and short of it is, I think you basically need to embrace the tank. I think as much as it's not fun and it's not good for the league in a long-term thing, in my mind, the problem isn't tanking. Because as long as there's going to be a draft, you're going to have tanking. That's just how it is. Otherwise, you're going to get you're going to have a college football or Premier League system where the teams with a ton of money are going to win constantly, except for a different, smaller team that is going to get lucky of someone having a dramatic boost in their overall quality or their overall skill level. You can't hope, at least in American sports, to have a Leicester 2016 when you have teams like the Dodgers, like the Lakers, or the Knicks, or the Celtics, or in football, like the Chiefs, the Rams, probably, maybe Patriots. I don't really know the money, how much Kraft's doing, but you can even use the Eagles as an example. The Eagles are very willing to spend money. The Cowboys, right? And so when you have other teams where like the Bengals, where their owners pinch pennies like their life depends on it, it's going to be very tough to keep that sort of competitiveness when you give free reign on just money being the answer. And so what I think the NFL does above the NBA is they don't have a lottery. Teams get their good players and the good picks, and so as much as it's not a 100% fix, obviously there's no 100% fix with the draft. But what I think we've seen from the NFL that you don't see as much in the NBA is more of a rotation. And so just to use I mentioned these two teams as an example, and they kind of work as this example. You have the Browns, right? The Browns, bad. They've been bad since their inception, and they are bad now. But you had that little window after they really tanked. They did 2014-16 Sixers process level of tanking, right? And they got Myles Garrett, they got Ward, they got Baker Mayfield, and they were good for a while. They made some good moves with that, and they were 10-6. They won their first playoff game against the Steelers as well, which, that's got to be cherry on the cake right there, or icing on the cake. I don't know. I mix up cake and sundae. Anyway, that's got to be icing on top. And then they make some bad moves. They draft poorly, and now they're back at the bottom. And it's sort of the same thing with the Raiders, where they sort of were middling for a while in the late 2010s, early 2020s with Derek Carr, and then they traded for what's his name, who was on Green Bay. He's now on the Rams. For Devontae. Oh, I'm forgetting his name. But they trade for that wide receiver, right? And they make it to the wild card. Or no, they just miss out on the wild card. And then they completely fall apart. And now they're drafting Mendoza. But I feel, and now you're even seeing with the Panthers, where they were bad for a while, and then they had, oh my goodness, Cam Newton. They had Cam Newton. They get to a Super Bowl. They don't win the Super Bowl. They fall back down to bad. And now they drafted first overall. It looks like they're could be on a rise again. And in my mind, that is sort of what the NFL gets with the draft that the NBA doesn't. Because you have the certainty of getting the first overall pick. And to be fair, in the NFL, it does feel as though the top end really does make such a big difference in the long term that teams at least rotate between being the worst in the league and middling. They don't get to good, right? But I think that sort of solves the issue that you've had with Charlotte, that you basically had with Detroit for years until recently, that you had with the Knicks for years until they traded for every Villanova player under the sun, that you have with the Pelicans, that you had for a lot of teams for a long, long time, where they do poorly, they have all these losses, and it doesn't get them anything. I understand for some people. I have a friend who watched a lot of world football. So he's very much anti-draft, very much anti sort of a lot of the American system of sports. And I understand why. But I think considering the fact that you're not going to be able to just get rid of the draft, you're not going to be able to change too much, I think getting rid of the lottery at least does better in rotating where a lot of talent goes. And by doing that, you at least give teams more of a chance than you at least have had in what feels like most of the NBA until they hit on one guy. Because you saw with the Pistons, it was like miss. Oh, you got Cade Cunningham, and you can trade Jaden Ivey, and now you have a contender. Spurs, maybe okay. Devin Vassell, a little weird. Jimmy Sohan, I don't know. Colton Johnson, this. Wemby, now you're contender. Right? OKC, you got some young guys here, trading for some picks. And then you trade for Shea. And then you hit on guys like, Chet's good. Dort is okay. But you have so many picks, and now you can move around. It just feels like the NBA banks so much on one correct decision that is even more luck-based than the NFL, and that's why you see so many teams, despite trying to rebuild, they are just wallowing in mediocrity, because if they don't hit that pick, then it's just another lost year, and it happens again and again and again. And so it just, to sum up this whole episode here, I think there are two changes that the NBA needs to do. I'm going to say two changes. I'm going to actually throw in something else. The first change is I think you need to get rid of the lottery. Make it so whoever has the worst record with tiebreakers, that's who gets the first overall pick. I do have another idea, and an idea that I'm not sure would be good, I'm not sure it would be better than this, but I think it is more fun, and I think it is going to help produce viewership for bad teams. Because I imagine this is the problem, is the viewership. And so here's my idea. Kill the in-season tournament. Don't have how it is now. I think it's fun, but it's not going to be an FA Cup, right? It's not going to be a Copa del Rey, a Dutch Pokal. It's not happening. So you kill that, and instead you do a bottom 8 tournament. Or a bottom 10 tournament, right? You have the play-in, you have all that set up. And you have it so it's by record. If it's you in the play-in, you're not in this tournament, right? But what you do is you have your bottom 5 in each conference. They match up. And you say, whoever wins this tournament, you get the first pick. Does it fix tanking? No. It doesn't fix tanking because you cannot have a draft without tanking. But I think in the overall picture, you need to embrace the tank. You had the tank for Tua year. You had lose for Lawrence. You had even in the NBA, you had the process. You have everyone knows this thing is happening. I think, in my opinion, part of the reason why I think embracing the tank works is because the NBA has a huge issue with communication. Whether it's from players, whether it's from teams, whatever, you have a huge communication issue. One of the biggest gripes you hear online about the NBA is the fact that no one has any idea whenever a player is going to play or not. And I think this continues onward throughout the rest of the league. And now, you cannot really fix that, the communication about when players are going to play, because let's be honest, no matter what rules you're going to write, teams are going to find a way around it. With that being said, I think the better you can communicate whatever it is, and the more you're honest, people are going to be upset. But I think you have to, the more you're forward on it, at least you have a chance of people just saying, okay, I get it. We're in a bad spot. We're not going anywhere. Let's do it, right? Let's say you're, this is a bad thing to do, especially on the record here, but I'm just gonna pick a team in the standings that's not gonna make the playoffs, right? That's not the Bucks. I'm not picking the Bucks because that's boring. Okay, let's say you're Brooklyn, right? Let's say you're Brooklyn. You're a bad team, or you're the Pacers, even better, right? You're a bad team. Your best player is injured. He's out for most, if not the entire year. You just go up and say, hey, the same way the Sixers basically did it last year, you say, hey, this year's going to suck. This year's going to be terrible. We're going to lose. There's nothing we can do about it. We have no leverage. It's tank time. We're looking for one of the boozers, or DeBonsta, or I forget the third guy. But again, are people going to be upset? Yes. Are people going to refund season tickets? Yes. I think in the long term, it saves the reputation of the team. When you have those confusing eras of, is the team going to be good? Are people going to get healthy in time? What's going to happen? That's where people get more irritated. And I know this from personal experience. Last year, when my family and I, we've gone to the Sixers quite a bit. And we had actually, even with Embiid and George out, we had still enjoyed going to the Sixers. Were they winning? Not really. But you had Tyrese Maxey and you had Jared McCain, two young guys, athletic, along with Kelly Oubre and Bona and other athletic guys, and they're just running. It doesn't mean they're going to win, but at least it's entertaining. Then McCain and Maxey go down. Paul George comes back, who's good, but just slower, and again, not as fun. And that's when my father leans over to me and says, hey, I don't think we'll do season tickets next year, or at least we'll cut back on them a ton. And I lean back to him and say, hey, totally get it. You're paying for this. If you don't think you're getting your money's worth, I would rather not go to these games. I'm fine. And that's part of the sort of the issue you have there, where people want to support their team. People understand teams have to go through this process of being bad. At least most fans do. They understand rebuilds happen. They understand these things happen. Trying to finagle into a rebuild / win now system just in one is very hard to do and often doesn't work unless you have such a vault of draft picks that you're going to be able to replace everyone in 3 years anyway. I'm looking at you, OKC, and kind of the Spurs too, to be honest. But for the most part, what happens is you just annoy fans. You just annoy the group that wants to continue supporting you by not being clear. And so I think if you, first and foremost, get rid of the lottery, and second, just embrace that tanking exists the way the NFL, at least fan base, does. I don't think the NFL, actively promotes tanking, right? But, again, as I mentioned, the tank for Tua, losing for Lawrence, there's at least this idea of tanking is a natural part of the game. Urinating Tree on YouTube talks about he has his part in Sports Bowl where he has the tank bowl, and he has a whole joke about it because most people in sports understand tanking is necessary. Tanking is always going to happen. And so instead of trying to lessen an inevitability, I think you just need to embrace it so that way people know what they're getting, what they, if they should spend their money on this, especially with tickets being so expensive and everything being so expensive. I think it's good. By the way, actually, last thing before I log off, because I'm almost home, last thing, lower food and drink prices. That, you know what? Erase everything I've said. Number one thing, lower food and drink prices. You guys already don't make a profit on those things anyway. There's literally no point in making it so expensive. If you want people to get in those seats, make that stuff inexpensive, and I would bet actual real money the most profitable nights on any MLB team was Dollar Dog Night. Lower that stuff and you'll be fine. But for the overall, embrace the tank, get rid of the draft lottery, and I think it'll make things a lot easier for fans and teams to do what they need to do to be successful or lose to, in the long term, be successful. Thank you for listening. I hope you have a wonderful day.